Fast and Furious movie premiered in 2001, no one expected it to spark a cultural shift. What started as a small-budget film about underground street racing went on to become a billion-dollar franchise. And more importantly, it rewired how people around the world thought about cars, car culture, and even identity. The late 1990s were a unique time for cars. Compact imports from Japan, Hondas, Mitsubishis, and Toyotas were affordable, easy to modify, and often overlooked by the traditional muscle car crowd. At the same time, street racing scenes were popping up in Los Angeles, Miami, and New York, blending together diverse communities of gearheads, DJs, and young entrepreneurs. But outside of those circles, the mainstream public barely noticed. That all changed with The Fast and the Furious. For the first time, Hollywood put the spotlight on tuner culture: neon lights, big spoilers, nitrous oxide, and custom paint jobs. It wasn't just about going fast. It was about showing off personality, identity, and status through a car. Suddenly, what was once a hidden subculture became front and center in theaters across the globe. The franchise's influence can be broken down into three main areas: accessibility, diversity, and aspiration. First, accessibility. Unlike the muscle cars of the past, which required a lot of money and mechanical knowledge, the cars in Fast and Furious were based on affordable platforms. A Mitsubishi Eclipse, a Toyota Supra, or a Honda Civic weren't exotic cars. They were parked in driveways across America. For young people, especially teenagers, these cars felt attainable. Watching Paul Walker's Brian O'Connor drive a regular Civic tricked out with neon lights and custom wheels made enthusiasts believe, I can do that too. Second, diversity. Fast and Furious wasn't just about cars, it was about community. The movies showcased a melting pot of cultures, from Latino street racers to Asian American crews and African American tuners. In an era when car media was often dominated by one demographic, Fast and Furious opened the doors for everyone. That inclusivity wasn't just on screen. It inspired people from all backgrounds to enter the scene, expanding car culture into a global movement. And finally, aspiration. The franchise glamorized the lifestyle surrounding cars. Street races under glowing city lights, parties in garages, and crews working together to build their dream rides created an aura of excitement. For many fans, it wasn't just about horsepower. It was about belonging to something bigger. But the cultural ripple effects didn't stop at local car meets. The franchise influenced the aftermarket industry on a massive scale. Between 2001 and 2005, sales of car accessories like body kits, spoilers, neon underglow, and nitrous oxide systems skyrocketed. Companies that once catered to niche enthusiasts suddenly found themselves with booming businesses. Even the car brands themselves felt the impact. The Toyota Supra, once just another sports car, became a legend after its orange Mark IV starred in the first movie. The Nissan Skyline, largely unknown outside Japan, developed a cult following and eventually influenced Nissan's decision to bring the GTR to US markets. The Dodge Charger, with its connection to Vin Diesel's Dominic Toretto, reintroduced muscle cars to a younger audience. Of course, the influence wasn't without controversy. Law enforcement agencies across the US reported increases in illegal street racing incidents after the films came out. Critics argued that the franchise glamorized reckless driving and gave young fans the wrong message. Cities like Los Angeles even launched specific crackdowns on underground racing, directly linking the trend to the movie's popularity. But even with those concerns, the broader legacy of Fast and Furious is more positive than negative. It democratized car enthusiasm. It told a generation that car culture wasn't just about restoring classics or buying expensive exotics. It was about creativity, community, and expression. As the franchise evolved, so did its impact. By the mid-2000s, the films shifted away from street racing and focused more on action, stunts, and global heists. Some longtime fans criticized the change, saying the series abandoned its roots. But others argued that the early films had already accomplished their mission. They had ignited a global car movement that couldn't be reversed. Even today, car meets around the world still echo with the DNA of Fast and Furious. Modified Civics, Supras, and RX-7s sit side by side with modern supercars, all influenced by that first wave of enthusiasm. In the end, the Fast and the Furious changed car culture because it made it visible. It celebrated everyday cars, elevated diverse voices, and turned niche street scenes into global phenomena. Whether you're a hardcore gearhead or just someone who likes the sound of an engine, there's a good chance your perception of cars was influenced, directly or indirectly, by this franchise. More than 2 decades later, the world may not remember every detail of the plot lines, but the sight of a neon-lit Supra tearing through the streets at night, that image will always be burned into car culture history.